those life goals and dreams that you wrote on your timeline with your college choices. So we're going to work backwards a little bit. But I'm also going to teach you a note-taking technique, because who goes to college and doesn't take notes, right? Okay, it's not a good idea. So, for how many of you prefer to see what you're learning? You're visual learners. You like to see the pictures. You like to color code things. Okay, so this is a note-taking technique for you. And I had to make it for myself because I'm not a visual learner, and this confuses me. So, we'll see how well this goes. So our main topic today is college. Okay, so you're in a class, you're going to write whatever the subject of today's lecture, and you draw a bubble around it. Okay. We're working backwards. We're going to start with your career for this reason. College is expensive, right? Dr. Jackie talked about that. You don't want to go to college and then graduate and not be able to get a job, right? Because you got to pay your student loans back, assuming you have them, whether you get a job or not. Okay? So, when you're looking at your career, and if you want to duplicate this on the back of one of your sheets of paper, go ahead and do that. If you know what kind of job you want to have, then I want you to look for job openings. Okay? There are two websites that I recommend. One is Glassdoor.com, and the other is CareerBuilder.com. And I just want you to search for jobs that you think you want. Read the job duties. What are you going to have to do in that job? If it still sounds like something you want, look at the requirements. What do you have to get that job? It's going to tell you what degree they want you to have. Okay? So knowing the career you want, knowing the job you want to have is going to determine which degree you enroll in or go to school for. So as you're looking at colleges, you're already going to know what degree you need. Most college students look at colleges that are around them, look at colleges they can afford, and just pick one and hope for the best. And those students, a lot of times they graduate and they're still doing the waitressing job that they did during school because they can't get a job in their degree field. Or they graduated, tried it, and found out they didn't like it. So you want to figure that out before you ever enroll. So what are some ways you can explore your career options and decide if you like it before you go to school? Job shadow. That's a great one. If you know somebody who has a job and it interests you, you're curious, ask them if you can hang out with them in the office for the day. Follow them around, see what they actually do. That's going to be a huge help in deciding if that's something you want to do for 20 or 30 years before you can retire or not. What's another option? Internships. Once you get into college, you can start looking for internships. Sometimes you can get lucky and get a paid one. A lot of times they're not paid, but you get that working experience, and it's very important when it comes to the job search after college. What else can you do? What about volunteering? Volunteering is a great way to meet people in different career fields and to kind of get your hands dirty and figure out if it's something you're going to like. Okay, so you can look for volunteer opportunities. There's lots of ways to explore your career before you ever finish high school. And so I want you to think about that and plan for that. Okay? Now, what else matters when we're going to college? Dr. Jackie talked about your personal needs a little bit. What do you need to be successful? Okay. Do you need to have a college that's close to home so that you don't have to pay for room and board? sometimes living on campus, that room and board charge is just as much as your tuition. So it can double your bill. So if you need to be able to live at home, then that's something you need to consider while you're looking. So I'll just put distance for distance from home. If you want to leave the state, you want to get out of Oklahoma, that's fine. That's one of your personal needs. So distance from home, what are your living arrangements going to be? Because if you don't live very close to campus, most colleges require their freshmen to live on campus. And you have to apply for an exception if you live close and don't want to live on campus. Okay? So if you're moving away and you want to get an apartment, that's fine, but that college is probably going to require you to live on campus as a freshman and you can move off campus as a sophomore. Okay? So you need to be aware of that. What about extracurricular activities? Because you don't just go to college to go to class. Right? Maybe you like to participate in drama or sports teams or music groups. Okay? So different campuses offer different activities outside the classroom. So if that's something that you want to look at or something that's important to you, then you need to have that in your plan as you're looking at colleges. It's something that needs to be a factor. And then I'm just going to put up here other factors because like Dr. Jackie said, everybody's a little bit different. We all have different things we're looking for in college. Okay? Now, one that nobody can get away with or away from is cost. And not all colleges charge the same. So those of you looking at leaving the state, you're going to have to look at out-of-state tuition. For a lot of colleges, that's higher than if you lived in-state. Okay? So, for example, the school I first wanted to go to was back in Colorado, but I live here. So I moved to Colorado and lived there for 6 months before I enrolled, so I got cheaper tuition. Okay, so that might be something to think about if you're going out of state. So maybe 6 months and maybe a year that you have to live there before you enroll, but to get that cheaper tuition. But there are states that have agreements with neighboring states where, like, if you go from Oklahoma, I believe Oklahoma and Kansas have an agreement that you can go to a college in Kansas and pay in-state tuition if you're from Oklahoma. Okay, or if you lived in Kansas and want to come to Oklahoma, you can do that and pay the lower in-state tuition price. So that's something you have to look at when you're looking at your colleges. Are you going to pay in-state or out-of-state tuition? And then the room and board fees. Remember, living on campus can almost double your bill at most colleges. Okay, if your tuition's $9,000, your room and board's probably going to be $8,000, and that's just that much more money. Okay. So how do you cover the cost? Well, most of us end up working at least part-time jobs, right? Some of us can manage to make some kind of payment arrangement, but I'm going to tell you that each semester has to be paid in full 100% before you enroll in the next semester. So if you're planning on paying it that way, you're paying $17,000 a year. That's a whole lot of money every month to come up with so you can go to your next semester. Okay. But some are able to do that. Most of us rely on financial aid. I probably should have wrote this one. Okay. Now, if you've noticed what I'm doing with this mind map is I'm circling the ones that I'm going to have additional branches off of, okay, because that's a visual clue to me that that's not the end of that, okay. So as you're taking notes this way in class, that's one way to visually clue yourself in to that's a topic with more to study. Another way is to switch colors. So you might have branches coming off being different colors. Actually, I'm going to say the blue for this, and then I'm going to switch to red here in a minute. Okay? So financial aid. What do you know about financial aid? Where does it come from? I know you girls know this because I've talked to y'all before.
No.
Now the secret comes out.
All right, what's the very first thing you're going to fill out, maybe even before your college application? The FAFSA. I'm bringing this down here. I can write that. Do you may know what that stands for? Free application for federal student aid. Anything free is good, right? I'm going to come back to that one because we're going to talk about it more. Other forms of financial aid. Scholarships. I'm just going to grab it because I can't write above that. Okay, so we can get scholarships. We can also get private student loans. And I'm going to talk more about this in a second because I strongly discourage these. But they can be a last-ditch effort if it's going to make or break whether you graduate. Okay. So, back to the FAFSA. How many of you heard of Pell Grant? You know what the Pell Grant is? It's the free money that the federal government gives you based on your family's financial situation. Okay? So it is needs-based, meaning you'll have to provide your parents' tax information unless you're an independent student. And that'll determine how much Pell Grant you get. Now, if you go to a community college or most state colleges, the Pell Grant could be enough to completely or almost completely cover your tuition. Not books, not fees, not room and board, but at least the tuition. Okay? So this is a big help to a lot of students. Okay? There's another thing called work study. And I did this in school because it gave me a part-time job on campus. And I had the best boss because as long as I finished the tasks she had for me, I could sit there and work on my homework and get paid. Okay? Now, it pays minimum wage and you're limited to the number of hours you can work per week, but it's on campus. So if you're living on campus and you don't have a vehicle, then you can walk to work too. Okay? It can also be a way I've known of students who put half of their work study money towards their tuition bill. So you can have it taken out and applied to your tuition bill, or in my case, I had an outside scholarship and I had Pell Grant, so my tuition was covered and I lived at home. So my work study money went in my pocket and that's how I bought my personal stuff. Okay, but yes. So that's one option. The big thing that most of us get stuck with are loans. Okay? Now, there's more than one. And this can get very confusing. There are loans that you, the student, can take out. And there are loans that your parents can take out if your student loans aren't enough. Okay? So it's called the Parent Plus loan if your parents do it. But for students, there's three. You can have the subsidized, which is the best, because it doesn't accrue interest while you're in school or for the first 6 months after you graduate. So the federal government loans you the money and pays the interest until 6 months after you graduate or drop out, which none of you are allowed to do, right?
Amen.
Drop it out. Okay. Then there's the unsubsidized. Anybody got a guess what that means? The government doesn't pay your interest while you're in school. It builds interest while you're in school. You don't have any payments until 6 months after graduation, but it accrues interest. You have the choice of paying that interest while you're in school, which I highly recommend. Because if you don't, that's capitalized into the principal, and it just means you have a bigger balance that's going to keep accruing interest as you make your payments. Okay, so it can lead to a lot of student loan debt. There's one other one that students can ask for. It's called the Federal Perkins Loan. It's not available at every college. It is an additional loan at a different interest rate, but you have to specifically go say, I need more money, I need to borrow more money, is there any way you can get me more financially? Okay, so it's something you have to specifically ask for. And again, I don't recommend borrowing extra if you don't absolutely have to have it. But I would take a Perkins loan over a private student loan any day. Okay? Your private student loans are going to be based on your credit, which means you have to have credit. And they're going to require you to make payments while you're in school. Okay? I had one. It was the worst decision ever, and I paid it off as absolutely fast as I could. Okay? So it's out there. It's an option, but it's definitely not a good option. Any questions on this part so far before I kind of switch gears? Okay. All of these factors, the cost, how you're going to pay for it, needs to play into the decisions as you're looking for colleges. Because I haven't even mentioned a college application yet, right? All of this goes into your pre-planning, okay, before you even get to the college application. Something else you can need to consider. Transfer credits. What if you start at one school and want to move to another one? You can do that. You can start at a community college, take some of your prerequisites or the general core requirements that are a little bit cheaper, and then move on to a four-year college, okay? I recommend if you do that you go ahead and graduate and get your 2-year associate degree before you move on to the other college, okay? Not everybody does that, but it means more of your credits transfer, okay? So I highly recommend it. That's the way I did it. So, but if that's your plan, maybe your plan is to go to OU, but you're going to take some classes at OCCC first. You want to talk to OU, and you want to talk to OCCC and make sure the classes you take at OCCC will be accepted at OU, because they don't have to accept everything. Okay? So when you're transferring between colleges, it is up to the college receiving you if they accept all of your previous credits. So that's something to keep in mind. Okay, so now we're going to do the application. What are some other things you can do before you fill out your college application? You can go visit the campus. Now, if you're going one halfway across the U.S., that might not be an option for you to go visit the campus. But if you can, you want to visit the campus. You want to talk to a representative. Just because you talk to a rep doesn't mean you have to enroll. It might feel like they're pressuring you to enroll, that's their job, but you don't have to enroll just because you ask them some questions. Okay? You want to look at the admissions requirements. Some schools require you to have a minimum GPA before they'll accept you. Some want have a minimum ACT or SAT score you have to have earned before they'll accept you. Okay, so you need to be aware of those things. You don't want to apply to a college and pay the application fee when you already don't meet the admission requirements. Okay, there's no point wasting your money. Because most colleges, it's not free to apply. Now, the community colleges usually are. It's usually a free application. Okay. All right, so now we've applied. I'm gonna say we've been accepted, okay? And just because you've been accepted doesn't mean you're stuck with that. How many of you have already started applying for colleges? Nobody's done that yet?
My
Okay.
juniors are at OSU junior day.
Okay.
For the most part.
Okay.
Oh my.
You got them all over the place today. You're gonna apply to, I recommend that you apply to at least 3 colleges. Pick out at least 3 that you want to attend and apply to those 3. You might get accepted at all 3, okay? But of those 3, you should know which one is your top pick, okay? Just because you've been accepted doesn't mean you have to enroll. But when you're filling out that FAFSA, there's a slot where it asks you which colleges you want to go to, and you want to make sure you list every college you're thinking about. That way, when you do apply, they've already got all that information, and you can ask them how much of this is going to be paid for, and how much am I going to have to come up with, and what's my balance going to be, because that can factor into your decision. Okay? So once we've applied, now we're going to go to class. Very important things to remember. We're talking about, I'm just going to go in here and put notes. And I highly recommend that you take notes on paper. I discourage students from taking notes on their phones or their laptops or their iPads. You know why? Because I was the student who played on Facebook instead of taking notes. Okay? It's too easy to get distracted when you're taking notes on something that you can get on other apps with. The other reason is you can't take notes like this in Microsoft Word. Okay? And the third reason is because one of the #1 best study techniques is to rewrite your notes or to take them and type them up. That's the #1 way to study your information. You do that within 24 hours of leaving class, you're going to have double how much you retain. Okay, so you want to transfer your notes, rewrite them, type them up, whatever, within 24 hours of class. Okay, so this note-taking technique that I'm teaching you is called the mind map or the concept map. One that I highly recommend you use YouTube is the Cornell method. Another one that was very popular with my students, so just go on YouTube and look for that. Okay? Your professors. Professors are going to be very different from class to class. Okay? You've got some professors who are going to be really good at transferring the information to you and making it easy to understand. You're going to have other professors who know the information but aren't so good at making it easy for you to understand. And it's your job as a student to make sure you grasp that information. Okay? So you have to learn, how do you learn? You have to learn yourself what works for you. And it might be different from class to class. You might use a different note-taking technique from class to class based on your professors. Another thing to keep in mind is the impression that you make on your professors. Because they're people too. So think about this. If you were the college professor, how would you want your students to come to class? I'm sorry? Orderly. Okay. I'm sorry? Prepared. Yes, you always want to be prepared. I had students who used to walk into my classroom, they had their car keys in one hand, their cell phone in the other, and sat down. Didn't work so well. Okay? Learning is up to you. It is, in most schools, the professor's job is not on the line if you flunk their class. It's on you.